Okay.
Because it's just turned 4 o'clock. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We have some interesting, presentations and discussion hopefully this afternoon to look at the results of the primary that just happened, do some analysis on that. And Becca Taylor, who is the acting chair for the San Diego County Democratic Party, she'll be joining us for that, but she apologizes she's going to be a little bit late because she has a bunch of stuff going on. So she's going to join around 4:30. So we're going to change up the agenda from what was published and sent out, if that's okay with everybody. And we'll reverse it. We'll have Cynara Velazquez, who's with us. We'll go first and talk about some of the mailers, advertising, persuasion techniques, if you like, that were used during the primary. And then we'll have Becca give us a summary of the results, and then have a discussion, maybe looking towards November, both for local races and for other important races happening around the nation, of course, as to how we can improve voter turnout. And we've got, I think, Dina Felmascara has joined us here, who'll be talking about, we want to set up some training, hopefully, for the Go team, for people who can canvass and get people out to the polls in what will be a pretty important election this November. So if that's okay, if I can go ahead and ask for a approval for the agenda, as I say, with that reversal, with Cynara going first and then Becca joining us a little later.
I move we accept the agenda as amended.
That's good. Thank you, Ruth. And then do I have a second?
I second. This is Angela.
That's great. Thank you, Angela. And then any discussion on that? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll count that as passed. And we will go ahead and welcome, known to many of us, I think, over the years, Cynara Velazquez, who is an Ocean Beach resident, but does a lot of work with Go Team in the South area.
Hello, hi everyone. Hi, it's nice to be here, and I appreciate being a part of the Point Loma Democratic Club. I haven't always made all the meetings because Sunday afternoons are hard for me, but I appreciate what you do here and appreciate this club, so it's an honor to be here today. Well, John invited me to speak a little bit about my documentation of the flyers that happen in the races. So let me know if you want me to keep it kind of specific to the Pacific Beach area or the entire county. I can do kind of a brief overview to the county and then focus on our local races if you'd like. But yeah.
I was going to say, the local races would be great, Cynara, as the primary thing, but then also the county races. And I think there's some parallel maybe in the terms of outreach, if you like, from some of the mailers for, say, the sheriff's race compared with our local district. That'd be great.
Yeah. So, okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead then and share my screen. So what I do is I maintain a website called politicalpropaganda.org, where basically I try, with everyone's help, all the people that submit, to document every single flyer that people receive during a primary cycle in San Diego County. Now, it's not a perfect job because, well, for one thing, I have more Democratic contacts than Republicans, so I often miss Republican mailers. But by clicking on the website, you can go and see all of the mailers that people have collected throughout the county in the cycle, and then you can filter them. So there are some very common themes in the mailers, and the mailers are very indicative of who wins. So if we were to start, for instance, at the sheriff's race, I'm just going to go here to the sheriff's race. Let's see, I can just type in the word sheriff and have it pop up. Okay, great. You see what mailers were sent in this race. Okay, so this is all the mailers pertaining to the sheriff. And you can see there's 2 here for Kelly Martinez. And then there are, this is actually just a walk piece for Dave Myers. And then you have one against Dave Myers. And then you have one that is ostentatiously for Dave Myers, but is really against Dave Myers. And I'll get into that evil campaigning later. But the point is, when you look at this, when you look at those flyers and how many were sent in each election, you get a very good sense of what the voters are seeing. And it often can be very explanatory as to who won what race and why. So you can see there were 2 slate mailers sent, and then there was a number of individual pieces, only one of which was a walk piece for Dave Myers. He never sent any mail. There were 2 against him and 1 for Kelly Martinez. And then there were 2 slate mailers, both of which were for Kelly Martinez.
This bull crap. Oh,
Yes.
come on.
so yeah, and that's kind of true everywhere. When you look at who can send the most mail, you can see who can win, who is going to win, unfortunately, because those are the messages that voters are getting. So another election, I'm going to go a little outside the district first, was the Chula Vista mayor's race. I think that's one that people were kind of interested in, because how exactly did Amar Campa-Najjar win this one, right? So the answer is, I'm going to go back here, do it this way. Okay, and we're going to go to election, mayoral race, Chula Vista mayoral race. Just pull it up. And why is that the only one I'm seeing? That looks like a mistake. Okay, this is where I learn what I've done right, wrong, and indifferent. Okay, here it is, Chula Vista mayor's race. Okay, great. So looks like I had a copy there. So when you look at the flyers that were sent, one thing that you notice, the more flyers are sent, the more flyers are sent by special interest. For races that tend to have just 1 or 2 flyers sent, usually it's sent by the candidates themselves. But when you come to the huge volumes of mailers, all of a sudden you see a lot of special interest. This is the firefighters from Amar
Come
Campa-Najjar.
on.
This is the firefighters again from Amar Campa-Najjar. And then this is the laborers for Amar Campa-Najjar. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this a little bit. So what mailers were sent for and against Amar? So we're going to go here for Amar Campa-Najjar in the mayor's race. So I'm going to go for the candidate, and you can see that Amar had a lot of mail sent on his behalf. In fact, he has almost all positive mail except for 2 pieces that Jill Galvez put out against him. So aside from two pieces from Jill Galvez's campaign, it's all positive, but most of it, the majority, is not from Amar Campa-Najjar himself. So this fire hat one is from the firefighters. And if you look at each one, just if you're trying to figure out how to use the website, you can click on it and you can see for each mail piece who it's from. So this is from the Chula Vista Firefighters Local 2108 pack. I click on that name and I can see everything they sent. They sent no less than 4 mailers, all for Amar Campa-Najjar in Chula Vista. The other group that played big in this race for Amar Campa-Najjar was the laborers. The laborers are Val, I forget his Macias, his last name, and Kelvin Barrios is their political advisor. And when you look, there's a lot of mail being sent from the laborers. So I think this piece is from the laborers, not from Amar Campa-Najjar himself. Nope, this is firefighters again. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for one that's from the laborers. Yeah, this is one of the laborers ones, I believe. So in favor of Amar Campa-Najjar. Okay, real working families. Yeah, that was the laborers. So they sent a good amount of mail as well. So here's another one, Amar Housing. This one is also from the laborers. And if I look, this is the pack that the laborers set up. Real Working Families in support of Amar Campa-Najjar for mayor. So they sent 4 pieces. Now, when you look, the laborers use different packs for each of their races. So you can't see all the races just by looking that the laborers participated in. But if I was to go to campaigns, I can see which campaigns are Real Working Families. And all of those were the laborers. So they did Real Working Families in support of Amar Campa-Najjar and Georgette Gomez. Those were their 2 candidates. So yeah, you can see that, Amar got a lot of mail out there, but most of it was not actually from Amar. Now, I don't have enough contacts that are Republican. So I don't get all of the Republican mailers. If I did, I know what messaging they were getting for John McCann, who was the 2nd place candidate, who just barely beat Jill Galvez in this race. And since this one is against John McCann, I was looking to see if I could get that signal there, but so I know a lot of mail was sent for John McCann, but I don't necessarily see it. So the message is here: if you have a friend that is a Republican, you may not agree with them on politics, but please ask them to submit their mailers, because I'd really appreciate it. So the other large campaign that received so much mail in this race was the 80th Assembly District. And unfortunately, that was a Dem-on-Dem election. And the more it's Dem-on-Dem, the greater you see of negative mailers. So I'm going to go here to the 80th Assembly runoff. And it was depressing. It was a lot of negative mailers. Here is David Alvarez is tainted by corporate polluters. Don't trickle down on us until it's raining, David Alvarez. And then, there are some positive mailers, but as we look here, there is this one against Georgette Gomez, a corrupt politician who profits off of her position of power. Georgette Gomez is the top of her class in political corruption. Georgette Gomez is corrupt. Because I'm just a hypocrite. This is David Alvarez is a hypocrite. Now, if you look again at who's sending these, all these ones about David Alvarez being a hypocrite and not being there, they were all being sent by the nurses and educators for Georgette Gomez. They sent a lot of mail on behalf of Georgette Gomez. And why did they do that? They did that. So this is the nurses and educators. They're all calling David a hypocrite, finding Alvarez. The choice is clear. Who is David really? So they're really negative pieces. Now, if we were to look at the things for David Alvarez, you're going to see that David himself is also not sending this mail. If you look at what is for David Alvarez and against Georgette, you're going to see and against Georgette Gomez, you're going to see a lot of things against Georgette Gomez from David's backers, which are arguably far worse than Georgette Gomez's backers, because David's backers, so this comic against Alvarez, so David's backers, yes, they're the ones doing the mugshot on Georgette Gomez. So this is the one that says scandal, 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 Georgette Gomez. Who sends this? This is sent by Keeping California Working, a coalition of housing providers, energy, and insurance agencies. And who is it sponsored by? Uber's, Farmers Insurance, Edison International, which is electricity, pharmaceutical and research manufacturers. So it's all big industry that's working on behalf of David and against Georgette. So this got really, really depressing to document. I'm not going to lie. These corrupt, this Georgette against Megaphone, against Georgette, a mugshot of Georgette. It just became really, really nasty. And the same thing against David. Now, Labor was doing the hit pieces against David, but the people that were doing the hit pieces against Georgette, besides this Uber and Farmers Insurance, was a very, very shady group that was documented in an article by The Voice of San Diego. And let's take a look at this. Corruption School, I believe this might be it. I'm looking for this. Yes, San Diego families opposing Georgette Gomez for state assembly. Now, in this election, they only sent one, the Corruption School. But if you look at the 80th runoff special, which had happened just before, they sent a lot more. So let me see. I just switched it to that. Let me continue. Okay, why is this not working? Looking for the San Diego families. Campaigns. San Diego families. Okay, here we go. So then we have this really nasty, awful mail, which is like Georgette, who is a vegetarian, feasting on lobster and saying she's all in for lobbyists. And who sends this but this group that is out of Sacramento? It's called San Diego Families Opposing Georgette Gomez for State Assembly. And it's sponsored by Ramos Towing, Jobs PAC, and Californians for Jobs and a Stronger Economy. You trace these back a little farther, and it's all the California Chamber of Commerce. So this was a very, very, very nasty race. Remember, this was actually a runoff of a special that had happened just before. So it was very unfortunate. And I think it really suppressed vote in the South Bay. We have very low voter turnout. They've been through a lot of these special elections. We all had the recall. They also had the first round of this and the second round of this. And it just became a really, unpleasant, because people are hearing these horrible things about both candidates. So going back to the primary. So yeah, I mean, when those races get that ugly, it becomes dominated by special interest money, and it becomes so depressingly ugly that people choose not to vote. Now, back to the Amar Campanajar and Chula Vista race, you see this beautiful thing here. This was not sent by the Democratic Party. this slate mail was sent by the San Diego Democratic Leadership PAC, which Tony Montalvo is the treasurer, and other consultants here are involved. And they sent two, and this was a big mailer that was sent twice with these really pretty pictures. And it's all of the candidates that were almost all candidates from one single consulting firm. So this is the consulting firm's mailer, basically. So you've got Amar as the Democratic candidate, and he wasn't the Democratic candidate. Well, he was a Democrat, but he was not endorsed by the party. Kelly Martinez, who was not endorsed by the party, and then others that were, but it all came back to who had certain consultants and who these consultants wanted to make appear. And this was sent twice to all Chula Vista voters. By comparison, the actual Chula Vista mayor's race, if we look at this, the Dem party mailer from the actual Dem party had so many things on it that these races weren't even highlighted, and probably had less impact than that one mailer did. So I was looking for it, having a little trouble finding it. I think I can grab it here. Here we go. So here we go. This is the one from the actual, this is a slate mail from the California Democratic Party. You see it highlights Georgette, but then when you get down to the local races, it's very small who is the actual Democratic endorsed candidate. Zanita does get a photo on it, but the other candidates do not. So I would say it was almost more impactful, the one that was sent by the consulting firm. So yeah, so that's all outside of District 2. And then I'm assuming at this point, there's probably, everybody wants to take a look at what actually happened in District 2, because that was what was depressing here. Okay.
Yeah, just before you jump to District 2 scenario, I think Dina has her hand up. If Dina, if you can unmute yourself if you have a question.
Yeah, I typed it into the chat as well. Cynara, have you been able to identify particular political consultancy firms that are the mechanism for getting these kinds of propaganda and nasty mailers out? That's question one. And my second question is there anything we could do about this at the party level to try to deal with this kind of nastiness?
Well, unfortunately, thanks to Citizens United, the easy answer is no. So the ones in the 80th Assembly race, which arguably were some of the nastiest done, those were coming from Sacramento. They weren't even local people here. So when you look at what was coming out in that 80th special election runoff, this was all firms from Sacramento and unions here, our local unions, basically fighting back. But either way, it was very, very ugly, you know. But this is the union mailer against David Alvarez. And by the way, I think they're both lovely people, but you wouldn't know that if you've been getting all this mail. So in the 80th, because it was a statewide race, Sacramento was playing a very big hand. Now, if we look at Dave Meyer's race, so if we go to Dave Meyer's, what was sent against him. So this is a little more local. So you have this wolves in sheep's clothing ad, and that was paid for by Coalition for Public Safety Reform, Training and Transparency. And that is basically the DSA, and that's a Deputy Sheriff's Association and their affiliated groups. So John Nuenio is their primary consultant on that. And then there's obviously Democrats that work with them. But yeah, so that is, those were the ones mainly against Dave Myers was the Deputy Sheriff's Association. And I can show another one from the Deputy Sheriff's Association. Let me go here with this. That was a slate mailer, but it was also for Kelly Martinez, and it was produced by the Deputy Sheriff's Association. Looking for where that is, right here. So this is another committee, but it was another committee of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. It was called the Quality of Life Coalition. And so one thing, when you're looking at this and you want to see who the funders are, you can click on the name of the committee to see everything that they sent. And then right here is the state committee ID. If you click on this and you want to know who's behind the PAC, come on in here and you can look at where they got contributions. And very interestingly, there was no contributions received for the Quality of Life Coalition this year. So they were using historical money or money they got at the last minute, because we're going to have another campaign finance report that comes out in 6 days on the 30th. So we don't even know who sponsored the Quality of Life Coalition, because it was either money that was already sitting in this PAC, or it was people that contributed so late that they snuck in after that last deadline. So this is from the Quality of Life Coalition. Now, if I look at Kelly Martinez for sheriff, and I see what was sent, I see the Lincoln Club for Dave Myers. And here's the Lincoln Club did a piece where they said that Dave Myers was basically a Republican. Sheriff could be Republican after all. And then they set this to all Democrats. And then they called Kelly Martinez liberal. And she's not liberal. It's actually the exact opposite. But this was sent by the Lincoln Club. People assumed the Lincoln Club sent it to them by mistake. What the Lincoln Club really did was they sent this to all Democrats to get them to vote for Kelly Martinez. And so if I look at again, Lincoln Club of San Diego County, Lincoln Club is a Republican group. I can see right here with their state ID where their contributions are. And again, this is another one that didn't have any contributions this year, or they got their contributions so late that we can't track them. So that brings us to our local race, if that's okay with anybody, everyone. I'd like to jump into District 2, which was one of the nastiest races out there. So going here, okay. I'm going to go to the election of District 2. So I'm just going to go over here to election, and I'm going to type in here, let's see, District 2. Well, I can also do location, San Diego City, submit. Okay, and here's the District 2 primary. So here are all of the flyers sent for and against candidates in the District 2 primary. Now, there is not a single piece that was sent for Lori Saldana. There is only, I have a walk piece here for Joel Day, but walk pieces don't hit as many voters unless somebody's out there walking really well. Usually male gets more exposure. So I also only had one piece for Joel Day, and then the rest are for Linda Lucox and for Jen Campbell and against Lori Saldana. And that's no coincidence because these things were all coordinated. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so jumping into one of the first pieces that I'm sure you all received was Community Voices against Lori Saldana. So this one, okay, I'm sorry, you did not receive this one. Community Voices was the Republican PAC. So if you look at the Community Voices website, Community Voices San Diego, they will say that all of their flyers were for Linda Lucox. Now, that is not really true because 50% of their flyers were for attacking Lori Saldana. So you see these beautiful quotes here, $22,000 and $58 in free travel from special interest groups, including first-class trips to communist regimes like China and Venezuela, where she studied with regime officials. Now, the problem with this, Lori has never been to Venezuela, and this number appears to be pulled out of thin air. So again, Venezuela and Caracas, Venezuela, but she's never been to Caracas, Venezuela. And unfortunately, there's almost zero recourse that a candidate has if someone boldly lies about them in this fashion. So the FPPC and the city of San Diego won't touch it. They call it it is freedom of speech. And it's political freedom of speech means that there is absolutely no accountability. So Community Voices San Diego, what is this group? So this Community Voices San Diego sent 4 mail pieces, 3 of which were comparison pieces between Lori Saldana and Linda Lucox, who was the Republican candidate, with all of which spent as much time attacking Lori Saldana as they did defending Linda Lucox. Now, the interesting thing about this is Linda Lucox herself only raised $8,000. Her entire campaign was run by Community Voices. Remember that Linda Lucox won. So the only reason that Linda Lucox came in second, well, she didn't win, she came in second, was these pieces being produced on her behalf. So if we go here and we look at the disclosure of the City of San Diego website, because for local races in San Diego City, this is where we go for disclosure. We can see all the filings that were done by Community Voices San Diego. And this gives us an idea of where their contributions came from. So I can click here and look at this PDF directly. But I also went ahead and documented it on the website. So I'm just going to go back here to Community Voices. And it was the Building Industry Association of San Diego County, the Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Downtown Partnership. These are really the only backers to this committee. And the person that was the organizer of this committee is Ryan Klumpner, who's the former president of the Lincoln Club and now a consultant. So note this name, Ryan Klumpner, because I'm about to refer to it again when we look at another committee. So this is the committee that was boosting Linda Lukacs and attacking Lori Saldana with false claims. But it isn't the only PAC that was attacking Lori Saldana with false claims. If I click on Lori Saldana and I look at everything for and against Lori Saldana, there's nothing for Lori Saldana and everything against. So we're going to go and we're going to look at this Saldana big oil flyer, because this is one that is particularly revealing. So once again, you've got this really big number from a very old source. This is an article from 2014. But when a journalist went and looked at this article, this number was nowhere to be found. This number is not from the article. There are no sum of numbers in the article that could add up to this amount. But there it is with this article as a source that never says this. Here we have another article that says, quotes this, saying she was in Venezuela. Again, she has never been to Venezuela. And it was created by a campaign committee called New San Diego against Lori Saldana. So looking at who New San Diego is, well, it was a few people. Mainly, some of the bigger people in it were developers and lobbyists. So here's two developers, both of which had standing development requests coming before the city of San Diego. And then we have some lobbyists, some very big lobbyists. And what's interesting about having lobbyists contribute to this, and former lobbyists, is that this committee attacked Lori Saldana as being in the pocket of lobbyists and big oil. So this one doesn't say lobbyists, but there's plenty of others that do. So the favorite of lobbyists by this committee, founded by lobbyists. So it's talking about how she was a lobbyist favorite who violated ethics. But all the people behind this committee against her are either lobbying the city of San Diego currently, or are the clients of people that are lobbying the city of San Diego currently. So there's a lot on this committee, but I do want to point out something that is interesting about it. When people went and looked at who was the main consultant to this committee, it was no other than Ryan Klumpner. So you had two committees that were working against Lori Saldana, one targeting Republicans and the other targeting Democrats. And Ryan Klumpner was the principal officer of one, and he was the consultant for the other. So these messages were very, very much synchronized and the exact same focus and everything else, because really they were all working together. You had on the other side, the Republican side, the money was coming from the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Development Group. On the Democratic side, it was coming from Batty Development, Nui Development, Ben Haddad, et cetera. And there's were some articles in the OB Rag that outlined this. So yeah, that's if people wonder how the results in District 2 played out the way they did, well, a good way to know how they played out the way they did is to look at these mailers. And then the other thing about having independent expenditures do the dirty work is that then the candidates themselves stay clean. So whenever you see something that is a smear piece, most of the time it's not done by the candidate. So when you look at Dr. Jen's campaign itself, they didn't do a single negative piece. They didn't have to. Other people were doing that. So this is the Re-elect Dr. Jen Campbell campaign. If we look at their literature, it's all very positive. It's all very pro-Jen Campbell. Now, interestingly, you'll see here that Todd Gloria did a piece for Dr. Jen Campbell. And that's interesting because New San Diego was also tied to people associated with Todd Gloria. So he's doing both the positive side, and then people around him are doing the negative side. So there was a lot of coordination going on in this race on these mailers. So that's basically my overview. And like I said, in all races, the person that puts out the most mail seems to win. And I don't always capture enough of the Republican side of the mail. So like here I can see one mailer for John McCann. Clearly he had more, but in this race, you know, it was the endorsed Republican candidate who was the only Republican in the race, and Amar Campanajjar. And if you just look at the amount of mail spent, and also apparently Amar did TV commercials, a lot of these results just come down to money. Who can put in the most money to get their message out? And as important as digital is becoming, you know, the thing that drives it home to people continue to be these mailers and TV. So yeah, I think that's kind of all I have prepared, but I'm happy to take questions. So
yeah, well, that's perfect, Cynara. What I'm going to suggest was Becca has been able to join us.
yeah.
So if you like, what we'll do now is we'll switch to Becca Taylor, who's the acting chair of the party. And she has some slides and a presentation we can run through, and then we could have questions at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah.
For you, Cynara, and Becca to stay, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, happy to stay, and we'll tag team the questions. Thank you, Cynara. I've known your website for a while, so I'm always hopping on there to see like what the latest hit pieces are. So give me a second to bring up, hold on one second. I have 1,000 tabs open, so I'm sorry guys, hold on. I think the easiest would just be to share my screen and call it a day. Okay, let's see. All right, and then, okay, is this up?
Yep, perfect.
Oh, well, let me,
You're at it's towards
I
the
was
end.
like, wait, I'm at the end, hold on. Okay, so post-primary election roundup. I'm Becca Taylor, acting chair of the San Diego County Democratic Party, longtime member of Point Loma Democrats, off and on, always. Got my OB Town Council shirt on, you know, definitely love to be here. So thanks for the invite. All right, so today we're going to be talking about our recent primary elections and some of the lessons we learned. Cynara has already gone over some of them. How June's results around the county indicate what we might expect in November, results of our redistricting and the impact on elections in our county, races that we're watching. So those are going to be D6, Board of Supervisors District 5, you know, 80-80. We'll go over that in a second. New maps are going to determine which legislative districts are competitive. So those are our senator districts as well. Our updated endorsement process with the questionnaires, and then new initiatives for this year, communications and organizing programs. So status of redistricting, Los Angeles County lost a congressional seat. So this is the first time in a long time we actually lost a seat because of redistricting as a California state. So San Diego County kept all of our seats though. East County and the new 49th congressional districts are still a challenge for Democrats. I mean, no surprise there, it always has been. There are 43 Democratic leaning seats and 7 Republican leaning seats in California's new map, and then 2 highly competitive ones. So it's just a brief overview. And then the primary elections tend to be less diverse and less representative. And I think you guys kind of know this, especially in midterms, there's less of a turnout. But San Diego County has had 34.8% so far versus 32.7% statewide. And interestingly enough, throughout the election cycle, as a county, we were 5 to 10% ahead of the state as far as turnout goes. So while 32, you know, almost 35% isn't great, obviously in the primaries, there's even less of a turnout compared to the general. We actually have done better than most. So you can see over, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but the historical data between the president and the governor's races, you know, presidential races bring a lot of people out. They're big, they're flashy, everybody's paying attention. We cannot afford to have Trump come back. And so you'll see, you know, they always tend to be higher than what we have right now in the midterms. All right, so about 400 kids. So for our Get Out the Vote efforts, by the way, just to let you guys know, I've been a part of some of the other central committee meetings in other counties, and they actually have given us a shout out, which is pretty exciting. I don't know if they even knew I was on, for our go-to efforts. So Normally, if I was in a room full of people, I'd say, raise your hand if you're on the Go team, but I can't see on the Zoom. So if you are, I highly appreciate you guys. About 400 canvassers reached out to tens of thousands of Democrats and MPPs in San Diego County with our slate door hanger. We spoke to about 15,693 folks at their door, and this doesn't include all the individual campaign efforts that we know are going on. So coming up into the general, we're going to need even more volunteers. Please consider joining the Go team in November. We also will have a dialer going if knocking on doors is the most effective. But we also have, if you're interested, phone banking remotely now and text banking. So we need to push back against the low turnout and get out the vote as much as humanly possible. And ballots drop a month before the election. So, you know, even before October. All right, so the general races we're watching, California 49, that's Mike Levin's district. It's critical that we keep it. And, you know, it's still a swing seat. It's not a slam dunk. He definitely got, you know, majority of the vote, but we're keeping an eye on that and we want to keep it that way. And they, so there's that. Blakespeare. So Catherine Blakespeare, her race was a big deal because for the past, I think 104, 140, if Kevin Sabelico's on, he can correct me, but over 100 years, it's been a Republican seat. And for the first time ever, it leans slightly Democratic and we have a chance, as you can see, 42%. We only have to gain 8% or even less. And so that's doable. And we're going to be focused on that to try to help flip that seat. And that's at 38. Sorry, my dog is in the background. Hopefully you can't hear too much of that. And then Joseph Rocha's seat, which is the Senate District 40. That's also a close showing. So it means the momentum is there to flip it. And I believe it was almost dead even between Republicans, Democrats, and MPP as far as that goes. So again, with the 5% spread, I mean, that's where turnout in the field, and when I say field, I mean all of our volunteers knocking on doors, talking to voters face to face. That's where you're going to see that last little bit of difference. And every vote truly does matter. We're going to see that in D6. Oh, no, sorry. So in the 80th as well, you see how close it was. So David Alvarez is our current representative for Assembly District 80 for the remainder of the term. And I know, Cynara, you went over this, so I'll go over it pretty quickly, but lower turnout affected the primary races, and there were split results between the primary, as you could see, and the special. So Georgette's ahead down here, where the Republicans were kind of splitting the vote. And then as far as the runoff, David Alvarez prevailed in that. So there's still a chance for Georgette. She's still going hard. Her campaign kickoff, if you want to mark it on your calendars, is August 11th at 5 p.m. Location TBD. So mark that down. And that's a heavily Democratic seat. So general races we're watching, Board of Supervisors District 5. It's currently represented by Jim Desmond, Republican. Dr. Tiffany Boyd Hodgkinson made it to the November general. And so that's another one that we're focused on. And then for District 4, we were able to keep the county blue. Woohoo! Nathan Fletcher got 62.26%. So, you know, we don't take anything for granted, but I think it's fair to say we'll at least keep the county blue, which is hugely important, as you guys know. It's the first time it has been blue when we got Supervisor Lawson Reamer and Nora Vargas elected this last cycle. So that would be pretty great to have another Democrat on there. And then county sheriff. So unfortunately, Dave didn't make it through, but Kelly Martinez has emerged as the front runner in the general. And, you know, I encourage you guys to kind of rally around her. She's running up against the Republican that made the anti-trans comments and didn't take it back. And it was a whole, you know, very problematic person overall. And so we hope to get Kelly in there. I do know she'll be at the Roosevelt dinner. So if you guys are going to that, feel free to go up and say hi to her, talk to her. And then D6 is another one where, hey, we flipped it. It's pretty exciting. We know it's going to be blue. So we've got Kent Lee is our endorsed candidate going up against Tommy Howe. And so you can see it's a very close race. So good news, we're guaranteed to have a Dem in District 6. And it's another one of those where people who might think, you know, oh, my vote doesn't matter. It does. Every vote matters. Look at how close that is. So there we go on that one. And then District 4, the People's Council member heads into the general with overwhelming community support. Love to see it. 71.36. So she knocked that one out of the park. And then District 2, I know you guys, I came on right as Cynara was going over all of that. So Dr. Campbell came out as a clear front runner, and the party has endorsed her. She's also running up against a Republican. It's the only seat a Republican actually made it through the general and, you know, to the general, I mean. And then Chula Vista mayor. Unfortunately, Zanita did not make it to the general. We have endorsed Amar Campa-Najjar, who's running up against a Republican down there. And so that's important that we keep that city blue. McCann is a little bit crazy. So there we are on that one. I had the whole timeline linked out, and I'll drop this link in the chat, but basically it's our endorsement timeline. In a nutshell, we are trying to go through everything, through all the different areas, all the ballot initiatives, just every race down to dog catcher, and then ratify them at our August 30th meeting. That is our central committee. We moved it to the last day of August because it allows us to wait until the filing is closed. And that way we can then go on, you know, to doing stuff for our endorsed candidates. And I'll drop that link in the chat, or if John, if you want to,
Yep,
I can
I'll do it.
afterwards. Yeah, and so we've updated our endorsement process from last cycle to this. We now have a candidate evaluation committee. Ruth, I'm guessing, is probably on the meeting. She's ours for the Metro West area. Woohoo! She's one of our people. And they help us sort through all the 2022 endorsements. So for incumbents, the friendly incumbents, or maybe not so friendly, depending, they help provide a score up to 40 points for all the elected fared in office. And it's our attempt to hold them accountable. So questions on there, you know, did they vote consistent with democratic principles? Have they endorsed any non-Democrats? How active were they in contributing to the party between election cycles? How active were they in their community? Because that's important too, not just like the party. And then there's, you know, those type of questions. And then the regular questionnaire is a little bit different. It's more on platform and where people stand on issues. And new candidates we've revamped the questionnaire, and we're going to be revamping both because we've learned a lot this past election cycle on what kind of matters, what, you know, is easier to tell or not, in order to help our caucuses. So as you guys know, our county is divided into now 5 regions. So the one that we're in now is Metro West area. And then we've got North Inland as well as North Coastal. It's split. Normally they have about 400 races, over 400, I think, and a lot of them are in the general. So those are split, and then South and East area. And I see participants have raised their hand. I'll answer questions at the end. I'm almost done. It's only 19 slides. And then I'll be here for questions. So again, our campaign fundamentals return. We've got different trainings for our candidates and our campaign staff. So grassroots organized training series. Trainings will be held across the county to prepare a ground game for 2022. And then we're also working on a new multimedia communications group. And it's simple. We need to tell our story and how our principles and electeds make a tangible effect on SD Democratic Dems lives. And so you might have seen Dan Castillo has been putting together a lot of videos or going to different organizing actions or whatever, and kind of trying to help put a face, you know, to our values and to like what's been going on in the community, to kind of share that a little bit more broadly. So we're still working on that in our social media. Let's see. Oh, Okay, this is the last slide. I thought I had another one on the Roosevelt dinner, and you guys have probably already talked about that, but just one last little pitch. It's next Saturday. It's a great time where we get it's going to be outside at the Sheraton San Diego Hotel Marina. We've got over last year, so it's our biggest fundraiser of the year, and it funds, our infrastructure as well as like our future candidates and elected to help get them elected. And last year we endorsed over 160 candidates and we got over 70% elected, which is pretty high. And that's kind of exciting. And now we'll stop sharing. And I think raised hands. Cynara, or did you have a question for me, or was that just to say you're ready to answer?
No, I had a question.
Okay, I might have an answer, but if I don't, I will find out and get back to you.
I had a proposed update to the candidate evaluation questionnaire, and I sent it by email to Dr. Luana Richmond. Is there?
Yeah, she shared that with us. And
Okay.
what I told her, I don't know if she's related to you, but to anybody else who has questions, submit them to us. We're not changing anything until we're not going to change anything mid-cycle. We have to treat everybody fairly, but we are taking suggestions and starting to have those conversations for next cycle. That way it's all fair to people. So I did get your question, Cynara. It had to do with the central committee members, right?
Yes.
That one?
Yeah, it was,
Okay,
it was the transparency
I
one.
got it. I did read your email, or she
Thank
did
you.
pass it along. Never fear. She
Great.
didn't say who it came from, or I would have told you yesterday when I saw you.
Okay.
But
I'm hoping yes.
yes. Well, I don't know, but
Yeah.
Nicole, and then it looked like Susan has her hand up, or Nicole or Arv.
Yes, it's Nicole. I'm interested in what's happening with the county party, more particularly Will Kennedy Rodriguez. And I'm also concerned about the fact that Jen Campbell really doesn't seem to be a Democrat anymore. Why will she get the Democratic endorsement?
Okay, so two-part question. First part is Will is still on leave. He is handling his external party business. I don't have a timeline or answer on that. So I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody else. And that's whenever that is handled, then he will come back. So we don't know how long it's going to take. And I'm not talking about it. So especially if I have to preside over anything related to that, I don't know more than that. He's handling it's an external thing from the party, and he is handling that. And then Dr. Jen is our democratically endorsed candidate. She is still a Democrat. She, last year was endorsed. So yeah, I know I don't know how you feel about that, but yes. So we have already endorsed and supported her against the Republican, who is a definite Republican.
How unfortunate.
Susan?
Okay. Is it true, Becca, that the county party didn't send a mailer to the registered Democrats in San Diego County, as they usually do, because the local electeds refused to fund such a mailer because Dave Myers had been endorsed by the party and they would not fund anything that had Dave's name on it?
I'd actually have to ask Dan Ryan, about which mailers have gone out. I know that because as far as that goes, I know we did send some slate mailers out. Whether or not like the Democratic leaders or whoever I know what you're talking about. I don't think so though. I think we did end up sending some slate mailers out, but I'm not exactly sure. That's a question I'll have to find out and get back to you, or I can message Ryan about it, because I came in right as ballots were dropping. So if as far as which mailers went out, I'm not sure about all the mailers that went out. So some might have gone out before me. I don't know. I know that I said yes and approved a couple of slate mailers, but I'm not sure. Maybe I could look through my mail, but he was our endorsed candidate, and so we did our best to support him, and I feel that we could have done more, hopefully, but it's already too late on that one. Now I would encourage people to prevent a Republican from taking over as sheriff and to support Kelly. But as far as the funding and the slate mailers go, I don't want to just make something up and be wrong. I don't know on that one.
Becca, I understand he was on the door hangers because those
Yeah,
are,
okay,
those
I was gonna say,
are-
I could almost
those
swear that he
are
was on
published
stuff.
by the
but-
by the county party, but the mailers throughout to everyone, that's funded by the electeds.
So I'd talked to Ryan a
No, I
while
know
ago
it's
about our
true.
mailers, and I know that we didn't send out as much, but we tend not to during the primary in general, like not just this cycle, but every cycle. And we tend to send more in the general when people are paying more attention. And that's not cycle specific, that's just the previous trends. So
Does anybody else have a question? You can either raise your
for me
Zoom
or
hand.
Cynara.
Yeah, exactly. Rebecca or Cynara, or write it in the chat. And
Yeah, I put my question in the chat. Can Becca see it?
Yeah, just before you go there, yeah, Dina, Angela has a hand up, and then yeah,
Very good.
I'll read your one out. Yes, Angela,
Thank
if
you
you
very
want to go
much.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is for Cynara. One of the things that really struck me, and I really appreciate the way you lay it out on your website, but what startled me about the anti-Lori Saldana mailers was the fact that we would get, I mean, literally every 3 days, we were getting, maybe 4 different ones. And then the next week it would be a replay of it. It's just the volume of them. And they sent out duplicates regularly. It was actually just startling how much. It wasn't just that there were different mailers. It was also just the volume was amazing. It just was startling. We can't hear you, Cynara.
I said New San Diego, the ones that were doing the anti-Lori Saldana pieces, 2 Democrats sent each of its mailers twice. In total, they spent, I believe, $160,000 against Lori Saldana. And, someone had said how to hold people accountable for these things. I don't know what the mechanism is, but I know if we don't document it, we'll never find that mechanism. And so the first step is documenting it. So at the very least, people can see the behavior. So that's why I try to do the site is that, we try to see, okay, Ramos Towing was doing all these hit pieces against Georgette Gomez. And then we had some Democrats in San Diego that were doing, working with Ryan Plumpner and working with developers to do hit pieces against Lori Saldana. So, I don't know what the solution is, but I know that the problem at least needs to be exposed. So, that's why I try to do this, even though it got really depressing. This year it got so depressing.
Well,
Can I ask a
appreciate it.
follow-up question to that,
Sure.
John?
Yeah, go ahead.
So was the strategy and is the strategy behind something like that if they attack Lori Saldana, she doesn't get on the ballot, and that was the only way they could get the Republican onto the ballot so that it would be Dr. Jen Campbell against the Republican candidate instead of either Saldana or Joel Day? Is that why they were doing this?
I can't speak to their strategy. I was not accustomed to it, but that sounds like a very good hypothesis.
Oh, thank you.
I saw
Yeah,
the question about Mike Levin's seat for San Diego and Orange County. I'm actually trying to find it on the Secretary of State website. So I'll get back to you on that.
That's great. And while you're looking for that, then Becca, yeah, Ruth, if you want to go next.
Okay, on the Lori Saldana thing, after talking to Lori numerous times about various issues, I frankly think they wanted to defeat her because they can't buy her. and they wanted to have somebody there that they could manipulate, that had already shown their positions. And I don't know, it's just, they really had to not want her there overwhelmingly to spend the kind of money they spent on her. And that makes me think she probably would have been a good city council member to represent the average person. Anyway, on one other comment, to Becca, I have heard nothing from the candidate evaluation committee, I think since after the primary.
Correct, because in Metro West, we don't have nearly as many races as every other area. So it's not that we've forgotten you, it's just that there isn't anything else to evaluate at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
And do we have any other questions? No?
I do.
Yeah,
I-
yeah, go
I
ahead,
just-
Cynara, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a comment. Okay, so maintaining this website is a lot of work. And I managed to do it as a one-woman army during the primary. And prior to the primary, I had asked for donations so that I might be able to bring someone on to help me, because it's both incredibly time-consuming and in this election, very psychologically difficult, especially with the 80th Assembly race, the amount of negative mail. So it really would be nice to have some help. So prior to the primary, I had asked for donations and I had gotten some, and some members here donated. Thank you very much. And I decided to save those for the general. So I have a fund of about $2,500 for the general from the previous donations. And but I'm still looking for more because I could really, really use some help. So I just want to put that out there. I'll put the URL in the chat, especially the URL for donations, because again, I could really use some help. And if you think this is a valuable exercise, and I hope you do, I hope my time is well spent. I would really appreciate it if you could contribute to this effort if you have not already. It is a nonprofit, so any donations are tax deductible.
No, yeah, thank you for Cynara for that. That's exactly what I was going to say next. Yeah, if people haven't gone to the website, please do click around, follow all the links. It saves a lot of time than having to research, all the filings from candidates individually. A lot of the information is gathered there. And as you say, trying to do it all yourself on a positive election is difficult, but on a negative one can be very demoralizing. Yeah, so the more help, the better, I think, for doing that. And I want to thank Becca as well for your slides and your presentation. I think we'll drop a link to the slides as well for those, which is great. And I have one last question, and that is, I know a little while ago for the Central Committee, there was an introduction of the idea that you could censure various either candidates, political consultants, or folks if they disparaged other Democratic Party candidates, or if they supported or avowed a preference for other candidates. And I believe that's something that a Central Committee member would have to bring forward, and would have to bring that forward. I think it's routed through the Ethics Committee of the party. So if
Admin, I think it would be an admin committee change. Is it? I'd have to check if it's already a part of our bylaws, policies, and procedures, because I seem to recall it might have gone through Ethics Committee for one of our members who's no longer a member.
Yeah, I think it is actually. We looked at it before this meeting, Becca. Yeah,
Okay.
There's a section right at the end of the policies and procedures that talks about disparagement of a candidate, outright lies or injurious statements,
Mhm.
and also if you avow a preference for somebody who isn't a member of the party, or an opposite member of a different party, I think is the language. And so I think, those, we would encourage people, if people do have issues, to write to the party on that, if they saw things through the cycle that they weren't happy with. And just to check, yes, I see in the
Yeah.
chat. Yeah,
And
Doug,
then-
did you have a
Oh.
question? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say what you just said, that it isn't, I'm on the admin committee and it was added to the policies and procedures. It's the last section. And complaints go through the ethics committee. And there's a definition in the policies of what's disparaging. And, you know, if something is, is clearly false and it's clear that the person knew that it was false. So a person traveling to a country where they've never been to, it would be an example of that. Then that could be grounds for disparaging. And one of the changes that was made that it also applies to consultants as well as to members of the Central Committee. And so the outcome for consultants could be they would be put on a do not patronize list for the party.
That's great. Thanks, Doug. And then, yeah, Cynara, you have your hand up. Is that?
I just wanted to add, I was saying, how much work this is. Something else that is a lot of work is what Becca's doing. So she's taken on the chair position on an interim basis. Wasn't necessarily planning on doing this with all of her time all of the sudden, and that's an unpaid position. So I just want to recognize, all the hard work that Becca's putting on. Is just kind of put on her at the last minute and right before the Roosevelt dinner. So she's working her butt off for all of us, and I for one, and I'm sure everybody, I speak for everyone, we say we really appreciate it and thank you for all you're doing, and support her please in her Roosevelt dinner efforts. So thank you, Becca.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I have a good team around me. I mean, this isn't staff's first rodeo. Our vice chairs, a lot of us have been through several cycles, and yeah, I mean, I could not do it alone. So thank you. It is a lot of work. And I appreciate everybody's help with it.
No, that's great. Yeah, nicely put, Cynara. And thank you. Thank you again, both Becca and Cynara, for the discussion today. And if people can either applaud with their little Zoom sign of recognition or emoticons, or come off mute, or whatever people would like to do. That is great. Okay, so with that then, we can move on to the next item in our agenda, which, he says, clicking on that, is officer reports. So I think, yeah, we'll just run through this quickly, because as part of the officer reports, in fact, we would also like to talk about some of the races that we either have endorsed in or will look to endorse here, and the fact that the club may look to provide contributions or donations either to the candidate or to various groups supporting the candidate, as we did in the primary. So I think first up for officer reports, we have Kip, if you have anything.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you. Two things. Way back in May, we had our last general meeting. June was the picnic, and those minutes were sent out as part of the recap email. Was hoping to get a motion to approve those minutes, so we get those approved by the general club body.
This is Angela. I'm moved to approve the minutes for the June picnic meeting.
Second.
The May meeting.
Oh, sorry, the May meeting. I apologize.
Second.
Thank you. John, do you want to call the vote, or are there any opposed?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way. Just ask for any opposition. Yeah, perfect. If there's raise a hand or speak up. No, hearing none. That's
Looks like those are good. And just wanted to call the neighborhood's attention to a project at Plumosa Park in Point Loma. I work for the city of San Diego with the Commission for Arts and Culture, and we have a temporary public art installation there that's inspired by music, has a really interesting app component to it that's publicized at Plumosa Park. So encourage everyone to check it out if you're out there or if it's on your walk route. Thanks.
great. Yeah, no, thanks, Kip. And then Angela, next for treasurer's reports.
So our current balance in our checking account is $11,821. And as John indicated, we're going to be proposing some possible contributions to be able to utilize some of those funds. We currently have 108 members of the club. And I just also wanted to mention that, and I hopefully Dina will be speaking to it, of the Go team, and hopefully more of our members will want to participate for this November election coming up. So as you've heard already, there's information both on the San Diego County Democratic Party website about volunteer opportunities. So that's it for me.
That's great. Thanks, Angela. And Leslie, I don't know if you have anything.
Not really, other than I had a wonderful time at the picnic, and it was wonderful to actually see people in person. So I can't wait for the next month's event, and looking forward to it.
That's great. Thanks, Leslie. And yeah, the picnic was a lot of fun. It is great to see how tall people are in reality rather than having just met them on the Zoom. Yeah, for my report then, and I say just very briefly, just to remind everybody, in the primary, we did endorse a number of candidates, including Barbara Bree, Tommy Howe, and then there's also candidates we think who got through the primary to the general, who we had discussed with them running an endorsement ahead of time, but because they were busy canvassing and campaigning, but have been good supporters of our club, Cody Pedersen for San Diego Unified, Rebecca Cantor, who's running for judge. And also, as Becca mentioned earlier, we have a candidate who got through to the runoff against Jim Desmond for the County Board of Supervisors, Dr. Tiffany Boyd Hodgson. So those are all candidates that we as the e-board discussed and thought that members may want to support going forward. And the other group, not a candidate, but another group that's coming up here at the August barbecue, we have the Western Service Workers Association Back to School Drive, which will be happening at the barbecue. So those different groups we thought, members would be interested in supporting. In some cases, we can donate, to a PAC that supported it, as we did in the primary for Tommy Howe. And in other cases, we would write a check to the local Democratic Party and put it into the general fund, for the different races. And so, yeah, I just wanted to mention that if people, have opinions on that or amounts and things that we thought we'd put forward, the e-board, when we discussed it, we thought we would put $500 as a donation to each of those groups, but more for Tommy Howe's race, simply because, in our opinion, at least at the e-board, we were discussing the fact that he is maybe one of the last remaining kind of unbought candidates, if you like, from some of the downtown interests that we see generally persuading members of the city council how to vote, as we've seen demonstrated recently on a number of different votes that have been taken, to do with the surveillance ordinance and also with the debacle over the 101 Ash Street coming up here to be talked about in the coming weeks. Okay, so yeah, I don't know if anybody had comments on that. Yeah, I wanted to add anything. Yes, Ruth.
Would you like to have a motion that we authorize the donations that you have just outlined?
That would be fine if you would like to make such a motion.
Move.
Okay. Do you want me to run through them again, the amounts and the people?
Might be helpful to Kip.
Okay, yeah. So the people we mentioned was Barbara Bree. Of the endorsed candidates is Barbara Bree and Tommy Howe. And then later in the cycle, we would have to endorse them first, the club, if we chose to, but as friends of the club and people who made it through the primary as the sole Democrat in those races would be Cody Pedersen, Rebecca Cantor, and Tiffany Boyd Hodgson. So I guess for today, we would just look to make a motion for Barbara Bree and Tommy Howe. And the suggestion of the e-board was to donate $500 to Barbara Bree's campaign and $1,500 to, and when I say campaign, to an entity that would support her campaign, the details of which Angela would work out. For example, before the primary with Tommy Howe, we donated to a PAC that did a mailer for Tommy, which consisted of other Democratic clubs as well, the Progressive Democratic clubs and the Enviro Democratic clubs. So it'd be a similar kind of format. But the implications for the club would be to spend $1,500 for Tommy Howe and $500 for Barbara Bree. Yep, and I see Nicole, you have your hand, or Arv, you have your hand raised.
Yes, can we, are we not allowed to donate directly to the campaigns, but we have to do it indirectly?
Correct. Yeah.
I second the motion.
Okay, that's great. So any discussion, further discussion on the motion?
So I just wanted to point out something, which is that we made sure that the mailer that we did for Tommy Howe, and we would do the same thing, was a positive mailer. It was all positive things about Tommy. We did not participate at all in doing anything negative.
Correct. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, point. Thank you, Angela, for making that. Because, yeah, and especially in the light of what Cynara was discussing earlier, that is not our preference, especially when there's two good Democrats running in the same seat.
Good point.
So any other comments or?
Call the question.
Okay, well, yep. Well, so yeah, the chair will then say, yeah, let's move to a vote. And the easiest way to say is, are there any objections for making those two donations? And if there are, you can either come off mute or raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, seeing no objections, that's passed unanimously. Thank you, everybody, very much for that. Okay, and so now is the chance for any electeds, representatives, or candidates, if they would like to take a few minutes to talk. And Doug, yeah, if you'd like to go first.
Okay, thank you. I'm Doug Case. I am the local political affairs director for Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins. A couple of things. I think people are aware that the senator, along with Speaker Rendon, sponsored a state constitutional amendment which would enshrine the right of abortion and contraception into the California Constitution. That made its way through the legislature in record time and will be on the ballot. It'll be Proposition 1 on your November ballot. Another bill that I may have mentioned previously that the senator is sponsoring with regard to abortion access is Senate Bill 1375, which would allow for nurse practitioners who have completed 3 years of training to be able to perform certain procedures, including first trimester abortions, without the direction of a physician. Another big thing that's been happening in Sacramento, obviously, is the adoption of the budget, and we have a record budget of over $300 billion. I think it's about 240 some billion of the general fund. It includes inflation relief, and I won't go into the formula now, but tax filers will be able to get between $200 and $1,050, depending upon their income level, their filing status, and whether they have any dependents. And there is a record funding for education at all levels. There's a $47 billion for, I think it's either a 3-year or a 4-year infrastructure program for roads and bridges and educational facilities, et cetera, across the state. So there's a lot of good news in the budget. One of the senator's priorities was a program that she initiated called the California Dream for All. And basically what it does is help first-time homeowners by having the state to participate as in a shared equity arrangement in purchasing a new house. And so that would be enough in most cases to either cover the down payment or substantially reduce the annual mortgage payments. And the budget that was just passed to set aside $500 million for that, and they hope to increase that in future years. And as people who receive these grants sell or refinance their home, then the 17 to 20% would go back to the state to be used by other first-time home buyers. And then finally, one bill that has gotten a lot of positive feedback from Democratic clubs that I've spoken is Senate Bill 1013, which would add would add wine bottles and hard liquor bottles to the California Recycling Redemption Program. And so, you can recycle beer bottles, and you pay the money up front, and then you get it back when you recycle it, and encourages recycling. And this would add wine bottles and liquor bottles of that. And people seem to think it makes a lot of sense because there was no opposition in the Senate and it's working its way through the Assembly. So I look forward to coming back on a regular basis. I was out of town for your picnic. I'm sorry I missed that, but look forward to hopefully being able to participate in the barbecue in September. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Doug. And any other candidates or representatives who'd like a minute to talk? No? Okay. That's great. In which case, yeah, then we'll move to announcements. If there's anybody who'd like to make any announcements. And I don't know, Dina, I was going to call on you. Do you want to give a premature announcement about Go Team training and what it would entail? That I know it's not planned and locked in yet, but just a kind of a preview maybe for what you were thinking there.
Sure, I'll be glad to. And I want to acknowledge Angela, who is now helping coordinate the efforts to get out the vote for the whole Ocean Beach, Point Loma, Loma Portal region. I appreciate it so much because there's so much we have to do. Your city council race has become increasingly important. And I think that we all now are not only angry, I'm also alarmed and scared by the ramifications of the overturn of Roe v. Wade, the fact that Donald Trump was able to appoint 3 justices to the U.S. Supreme Court for a lifetime appointment. I think it's more important than ever that we stay involved in politics. It's very easy to get discouraged, and I am tired, and I'm sure all of you are tired. We got stuck with this ridiculous recall election last year that just took up so much time and space. So going forward, the county party will be offering some in-person and a whole lot of online Go Team trainings. The online training will take no longer than any of your Point Loma Democratic Club meetings, so it doesn't take very long. And I want to thank Becca specifically for mentioning that in addition to going door to door, which can be problematic, Point Loma, Ocean Beach are very, very hilly. We all know that. That by telephoning and texting local Democrats, it would be a great way of encouraging them to send back that ballot. I think that all of us and folks who only become engaged when there is an actual election especially need to be reminded that they have to sign the outside of their ballot envelope and that it's a prepaid envelope so they can just drop it in the mail and off it goes and they're done. So I'm going to type in here the link to the Go Team training so you can sign up for a training if you're interested. And I'm specifically hoping that several of you from Point Loma would be interested in maybe doing it together as a way of participating in something as a group. So let me type this in here. And Angela, is there anything you'd like to add?
We just need more volunteers.
That's certainly true. Very, very few of us here in our area that Rebecca referred to as Metro West, which is from Point Loma and Ocean Beach up through Mission and Pacific Beach out to La Jolla and then over east into Claremont and University City. Very few people participated because we really don't have a local election that's really exciting, folks, other than your District 2 City Council and that area of Claremont that's in the City Council District 6 race. But boy, it's so important because now we're in a situation where some of the choices wouldn't have been our necessarily top choices, but so few people participated. We've got to make the best of it and try to get as many Democrats elected because we know that at least how they're likely to vote on specific policies and local ordinances to enshrine our democratic values and create a future for our county that encompasses a lot more equality and a lot more opportunity and justice. So here is the link, and that's it for me. Anything you want to add to that, John? You have so much more experience.
No, I think that's great. And I know your idea of getting people together. Yeah, we have a number of people who've offered, their houses. We can meet outside to do that. I think that's a really nice idea. And it's certainly something we can, look forward to and discuss more at around the August barbecue as well.
Okay.
So that's great.
I'm
Yeah, no,
putting,
Huh?
my computer typed a letter I didn't want it to type. So let me retype this for you. I apologize on that link.
No problem. Yeah, no, that's great, Gina. Thank you for that. And then I think, Ruth, you had your hand up?
Oh, yes, but you did clarify it. I thought Doug Chase said a September barbecue, and I knew it was August, and you just said August. So there. We
Okay,
all
yes.
know.
Yeah, no, it will be August. It'll be our next meeting, regular scheduled meeting, instead of being a meeting on Zoom, which we've been keeping to, as the numbers have started to go back up in the county. The alert or high level in San Diego County for the new BA5 variants means that we're sticking to Zoom. But for the barbecue, yeah, we would have that on Sunday, August the 28th. Yeah, and Angela, you're next.
Yes, so actually I did want to talk about it. So it will be at my house again. And when we were at the June picnic, the group, we talked about the convenience and just relative benefit given COVID of us hiring a caterer again. And the group agreed that that was what we should be doing as compared to doing the old method of the potluck. So we already got an agreement by the folks who attended that event, and I will be coordinating that for the August 28th summer party, we will call it, because we won't be doing a barbecue. We will have a catering group do it again. It is what we did last year. So again, hope everybody can attend on August 28th. And the other thing I did want to mention to Dina is that I will follow up with you regarding the possibility of us doing some kind of August training prior to August 28th, because I'm assuming you would want that sooner.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you, everybody. So with that, if there are no further announcements, I think this meeting is adjourned. I want to thank everybody for coming, being part of the discussion. If you want to download the chat, or if you're on a laptop, there's 3 little dots on the bottom of the chat, bottom right-hand corner, the ellipsis there. You can click on that and it'll let you save the chat. And if not, Kip, as always, will wonderfully magically will send out notes from the meeting, which will include a lot of the links that we spoke about today. So with that, thanks again, everybody, and have a wonderful Sunday evening.
Thank you, John.
Yep.